hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Phoenix Wellness Coaching Podcast with me, Jeanette Forder, the owner and founder of Phoenix Wellness. And if this is your first time coming along here and you don't know what we do, then I am a menopause coach and I work with individuals and organizations to help them to thrive together through menopause. But I also am now becoming quite a prolific podcaster. And this is our second season of the Phoenix Wellness Coaching Podcast, which you can find on all your various favorite platforms. And it's also available on my website. And I like to bring in really interesting people, male and female, to have a conversation. And during this season, I've been looking at the whole arena of values and what they mean to us, how they guide our behavior, how they guide the work that we do, and also, more importantly, how we manage to find them. Because obviously, values are something that we're kind of developed from a really early age, but sometimes we don't notice them until much later in our lives. And that's when the penny starts to drop. So today, it's not about me talking to myself. I have the lovely Anya here today. Anya, welcome along.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to talk to you. Anya and I met very recently. We are part of a women's entrepreneur network called Be Your Own. And there's something like 200 odd ladies on this very vibrant WhatsApp group. And I put a post in there and said, I want to interview people about their values. If values means a lot to you, give me a shout. And Anya was one of the first to put up our hand. So I was really pleased to be able to actually connect further with you, to meet you on a Zoom call and learn more about you, and to bring this conversation here. So before we really get into the conversation about values, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, Anya, and your background?
Sure. I'm Anya. I'm a photographer and filmmaker for small businesses and families. I'm originally from Germany, but for the last 9 years, I lived in the UK on the south coast near Brighton. And yeah, I'm all about enjoying life.
Definitely. Brighton is a party town for sure, isn't it?
It is. I'm just outside of Brighton. I'm not really part of that party life anymore.
There are times when the party life has to kind of leave, we have to leave it behind. I know I left it behind a long time ago, but you're a lot younger than me. But I know you said you've got the two arms to your business, family photography and small business photography with headshots and branding. So can you tell us a little bit about how you distinguish between those two sides of the business or actually bring them together?
So while I do have these two arms, so families on one side and small businesses on the other, I feel for me, they work really well together because my clients are actually both, they are parents who run a business or business owners who have children. So that makes marketing for me relatively easy because I can address everyone in one go while addressing different parts of their interests or different parts of their lives. But in everything that I do, I'm very much about showing who people are, not in a way that we feel Instagram or the society wants us to look, but actually really who they are. And that really works with how I portray people. So my family photography is documentary, which means I don't pose people. I don't take them to the park when it's golden hour and tell them what to wear. And I don't have a client closet where people can get those beautiful gowns. Like there's a place for this. It's not my place. So I photograph people ideally at home because that's where they are most comfortable, especially the kids, where when someone spills something, they can just change and don't have to worry about, okay, we need to bring extra outfits to make sure that we've got stuff that we can change the kids into. And I just photograph people where they are the most comfortable, where they create their own traditions, where they have their routines, because that's what we remember later. And the same thing for small businesses. I photograph. So there's beautiful locations that we can rent. There's Airbnbs, there's hotels we can go because they're nice and airy and beautiful. I don't use them a lot. I sometimes do, depending on the situation, but a lot of the times I revert back to where do you actually work? What does it look like when you work with your clients, whether that's in person or online? where do you sit on your computer? Where do you have your ideas? Where do you live? And kind of give context to who this person is. Because it's more than just, I need to look perfect for the online world. It's more like, no, I need to look how I look, the way that my clients see me when they actually interact with me. So they can put themselves in their shoes before they actually hire me. So it's all about being true to who you are, accepting who you are, what you look like, what you do, and the way you do it, and not feeling like you have to change anything in order to um, please someone who might not never actually work with you, or who doesn't actually, who's not really part of your life.
That's really fascinating because I've not come across the concept of documentary photography before, but I really like the sound of it because we are in an Instagram world where everybody's photos are airbrushed or people are putting fillers in and wanting to look a certain way and only portraying the perfect pieces of their lives rather than what their lives are all about. And it feels kind of quite out of balance because on the one hand, you know, and I know being a female business owner, people want to understand the person behind the brand. Who is Anya? Who is Jeanette? Not the kind of polished view that you get for those lovely headshots for your website. They want to buy from real people. So I think that sounds really, really good, especially with the business side. But how did you get into that whole idea of documentary photography? Was there something that drove you towards it, or another interest in your life, perhaps?
I would say it just kind of came to me, like it literally just evolved in what it is now. And I feel like my work evolves over time. Like it's never going to be the same thing. In 5 years, who knows what it's going to look like? It's probably going to be a new version of what I do now. But so I'm not someone who has always had a camera in their hand. I did have a little point and shoot camera in my when I was a teenager because I had to do an art project. But I was never really into photography until I was in university. And I'm going to age myself here because that's while I was at university, digital cameras came about, and everything was just more easy to access. So you could take a photo and you instantly would see what the photo looked like, and you can see, do I like this or not? Do I have to change something? Do I have to redo it? And that got me. That's where I got really interested in photography. So I studied media and communications design at communications technology, which is a very dry topic. It sounds interesting because it's got the word media in it, but it was. I'm technically an engineer, but I'm really not. I've got an engineer's degree. I'm absolutely not an engineer. So having this creative outlet of playing with a camera and instantly seeing what it does kind of gave me the bit that I didn't have in my university degree, the creativity that I expected from a university degree and I didn't get. I went to Hawaii just before I finished my university degree because in Germany you study for free, and having the status as a student is literally you can't get anything better because you're not getting charged for anything. You basically live a free life. And I was like, this is my chance to explore. And I went to Hawaii for half a year, and I took my little digital camera with me and I photographed everything I had around me. And I feel like that's when I started documenting things without actually thinking about I'm documenting. I'm literally just taking photos because I wanted to share them with my friends and family back at home and to have memories for myself. Like, what was my life in Hawaii, which is complete other side of the world, completely different culture. It's American, but it's also a small island. It's Polynesian, and it's just completely different from anything I've known in my world before because I'm not just from Germany, I'm from East Germany. So the first 10 years of my upbringing were very different to everybody else I know from Germany, apart like that I know now. And having this experience and documenting it really intrigued me to kind of see how I see the world and share it with others for them to see what I see. And I got a lot of compliments. And the person I lived with, he said, "You really got a good eye for this. You need to stick with it." And when I came back to Germany, I got my first DSLR, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And I literally took photos of everything I could. I took photos of my friends and their kids, and started photographing their weddings. And in between, I literally just photographed whatever was in front of me, and it kind of evolved over time. But I didn't know documentary photography as such existed until maybe 2016, 2017. So it took a long time for me to actually understand that this is a thing. And that's when I started with street photography, where I documented the streets of my hometown and other countries and just photograph how life is there and document, like actually documenting and understand, like slowly learning to understand this is what documenting means. And I still didn't see this as a career. I never thought I could make money of this. I worked as a video producer at that time, and I left that job after a few years because things didn't align with me anymore. I was tired of company politics and all of the background things and having to please a board that has nothing to do with our main customers and all of these things. And that's when I started going freelance. And that was only 4 years ago now. And obviously the last 4 years were kind of challenging. So trying to find my voice as a photographer and how I work with my camera and the way I want to work. I love documenting. I don't mind posing people, but I just love documenting things and not interacting in the sense that telling people what to do. And kind of over the last 4 years, kind of trying to do that. I don't like the word educating, but just for the sense of explaining this, so educating people about what photography, documentary photography means, and agreeing them, having them agree to me come into their home and all of these things was challenging, but I kind of it evolved over time, and I just absolutely enjoy showing real life and showing behind the scenes, which is what personal branding photography is.
Yes, of
personal
course.
branding photography is not a headshot.
No,
it's what goes on behind what people see online. Like what do you do to make sure your business works? What are the little things? If you're a jewelry maker, how do you make this jewelry? People want to know. They don't just want to buy the final product. They want, how did you do this? This is amazing. How did you get this tiny little detail there? Or if you're a graphic designer, how do you use your programs? How do you use your apps to create these amazing designs? And like having this is all behind the scenes. And this is all things that can be documented for audiences or the people involved to see and to share.
I love that. I really love that. I mean, to me, when you talked about documentary photography, I had automatically kind of put my head more in that kind of media journalistic side of things. And there's a fantastic story that I came across recently where there was a photographer and journalist for, I think it was for like Sky News or CNN in the big Katrina hurricane and the total devastation. And he was being told by CNN to document the good stuff that's happening. So, governments are doing this and people are doing that, but not show how life really was. And there's the story that he was walking across a bridge one day going into New Orleans, and a lady came up to him with her baby and said to him, please take my child. I need help. Somebody has to help us. Is nobody coming? And he was so touched by that. He then decided, you know what? I'm going to show what this is really all about, and started taking photographs of how the people were living, showing their distress, their uncomfortableness, what they'd lost, all that sort of huge drama that was going on, that human drama. And actually, when he did his report for CNN, they tried to close the report down because they felt that the audience didn't want to see that. But actually, that is documentary photography. And that's where you get some of those most compelling stories and images that just either pull at your heartstrings or it's like a call to action. So to see that the other side with families and businesses, I think is absolutely fascinating. And I'm actually going to do something here. I'm actually going to grab my mobile phone and I'm going to take a picture of us on the screen as part of my, my behind the scenes. So here you go. If you're happy.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, my digital camera is just my phone, but it does some pretty
That's
good
okay.
pictures.
The best camera you can use is the one that you have available. So
Exactly. And since having these, I take more and more photographs of the things around me, people, because I use photography or my photos as a kind of diary, a diary of my life and the things that are happening. And I just love being able to do that. As you say, when we used to have 35mm film, that was much more difficult. It wasn't, again, with digital, you can perhaps potentially tinker with the pictures a little more if you want to than you could before. But I know you can do that, but you never knew what you were going to get until the photos dropped on your doormat. So digital makes that much easier. But it's really
can I
interesting.
quickly
Go
ask
on.
you, are you
Yeah,
printing those photos on your phone?
I do. Wow. I do some of them, yes.
Okay, good.
Others I tend to, we have one of those digital photo frames. So we pop them
Good.
on
Okay.
there. So we've got lots in there, that old ones that have been scanned from prints. But yeah, I do print some of them. In fact, I've got some on the wall behind me, which was a photograph that we did. And I loved it so much, I had it done as a canvas. So I don't just leave them on the phone because then you forget about them. It's a snapshot and it's gone, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got like, can't really see them, my photo books.
Yeah.
So I print a photo album for each year.
Oh, I love
Because I
that.
do a personal project called 365. So I take photos every single day. And at the end of the year, I have a book with one photo per day. And then I can flick through it and kind of recollect what happened during that year. Because so many things we forget.
Mm,
And because I take photos every day, I don't do exciting things every day, far from it. Most days are very ordinary, very boring. And I try to see the beauty in the ordinary
yeah.
and take photos of things that happened. And sometimes it's just my food, sometimes that's a plant, sometimes that's my partner sitting on a computer. And I photograph these things. And so many memories come back from that day and that week.
Yes.
Like, oh, that was the day we went there, and that was the day when the oven broke, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm a
It's all
real,
about your stories, isn't it?
yeah, I'm a big believer in printing photos because phones die, hard
Yes.
drives crash,
Yes.
and if you have a printed photo, I mean, obviously, there's also the thing like your flat or your house could burn down and all the
Yeah.
photos are gone, but let's not go there. But having printed photos on your walls or in albums somewhere accessible where you can flick through them, it can do so much to you because it can remind you of so many little things that you may forget, or you actually have those people that may not be in your life every day,
Mm,
literally in front of you.
yeah,
And it's just really nice
absolutely.
to see that, and like what it does to your body to like see those images. Like they don't have to be posed to be beautiful, striking images that remind you of a great time.
Mm. I love that. Again, it's the storytelling, isn't it? It's almost like you're journaling, but with pictures as opposed to
Yeah.
words. That I have a photograph upstairs of my husband, who now he must have been in his 30s, so it's a few years ago. And it's after we've been to a rock concert, and he is sitting in his jeans and his leather jacket, sitting on the floor in the Elephant and Castle tube station. And I just went click. I think it may have been from my phone. I'm not sure. But it is my most favorite photograph of him, just because it is really natural. He's not smiling, he's looking ahead, obviously reading something, and I just snapped it. But I absolutely adore that picture because it reminds us of that moment in time. And that's where it's so important, isn't it? I
It's a
mean,
snapshot of your life, like the
yeah,
day when you were in London at that concert, and
yeah,
like all of the things that come back to you, all of the feelings that you felt
yeah,
on that day, you can feel them looking
yeah.
at a printed photo.
Yeah,
It's
it's
so
it's
powerful.
amazing. It is, and it's really good for us because it brings up the good emotions,
Yeah.
which again, we hear so much bad stuff around the world. Sometimes it's hard to focus on the good. Gives you an opportunity to be grateful for what's around you in the everyday, because the everyday is beautiful, even if we don't see it. And that's where the photography, the documentary style that you do, can really bring that home. So what drove you to want to be behind the camera rather than in front of it?
That's a good question. Actually, yes. So I'm the third of three kids. My parents both took photos. when they were younger of us. But once I, the last one, was out of the cute stage, there weren't that many exciting things happening anymore. And my parents got more busy and life just got more hectic. So they didn't photograph us anymore. So there's very few photos of me after the age of like 6, maybe. There's not none, but there's very few. So that for once means there's very few of me. There's a lot more of my older brother, my older sister. And then also my mum didn't want to be photographed. She was always, no, 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 take the camera away. No, no, I'm going to break your camera. I'm not photogenic. Don't do that. And I copied that because we take the, like everything people near us, around us do, we copy whether we want it or not. It just automatically happens. So I always was under the impression I'm not photogenic. I should not be photographed. I don't like how I look on photos when someone takes one, which also means, first of all, it's about accepting how I look. Like this photo of me, whether it looks bad or not, the people around me, they don't care whether it looks bad or not. They see me and they love me. But I see all of the flaws that I know about myself, and I don't want to see them. And also, some people just don't know how to take a good photo. So you only see the bad ones, which actually everybody around says, that's a fine photo. That's just what you look like. I'm like, oh, really? No.
That's when you say, I don't want to look like that. Don't tell me that's how I look.
This is not what I look like in the mirror. But that's another story, mirrors and all of these and selfies. But I was just not the one in front of the camera because I was so uncomfortable. So naturally, having photography as a creative outlet where I was behind felt like a safe thing. And it was the creativity, like just playing with it and I just absolutely love documenting life and showing what I see, especially when you do something and others love it, you want to do more of it because it's obviously, I like hearing that people like my work, but I also just like that others enjoy how I see the world and what I show them that they don't see themselves. It might be very selfish, but I just enjoy it. I enjoy the feeling I get from sharing what I see and then realizing, oh, that's so beautiful. I was there. I didn't see it like this,
It's not at all selfish, not at all. We always think that if we get a good feeling from something, we think we're being selfish, but it isn't. It's really important. It's part of that self-care. It's almost, a lot of the podcasts that I've done recently have talked about self-compassion. When you're hearing other people enjoying your work and seeing themselves in a different light, you give them acceptance and compassion, and it enables you to feel compassionate towards yourself as well. So it really is a virtuous thing. So it's not selfish at all. And those positive emotions that we get from others and positive emotions in our own accomplishments are super important for our well-being. But it is a thing, I think, as women, we're taught that to feel happy or pleased that someone likes what we've done is somehow selfish and a bit, no, you need to be pleased for everybody else, not for yourself. So it's kind of quite difficult. But I really like that. And your story, I can understand why you're now wanting to take pictures of families. I'm the youngest one, and there are some pictures of me probably in my teenage years at school, but they're on those momentous occasions, like when you got your O-level results or your A-levels, when you left, prize days, things like that. They're not everyday life. And that's why I take so many pictures of everyday life now, because I recognize that piece is missing. And I don't think parents do it on purpose. It just happens, doesn't it?
We're just so used to taking photos of milestones that we celebrate, birthdays and first day of school, last day of school, graduation, weddings, all of these things. But life doesn't happen on milestones.
No, I agree.
Milestones are the anomaly.
Yeah.
That's when we dress up and whether we're happy or not, we pretend to be happy and we're celebrating something or someone. But around it, there's all of these other emotions that we have and all of these other little stories that shape our lives that we remember when we grow up. Like I remember I'm a full-fledged adult, even though I don't always feel like it. But I remember when I was a kid, there was a day my sister picked me up from kindergarten and it was chucking down. So she gave me her socks, which were like more than knee length on me because I was tiny. And just things like this, I have in my head. And these are the moments that's what shapes us. I know my sister cared for me and she looked after me, even though she was a pest to me a lot of the times. That's what
Sounds like my
what older
brother too.
siblings do. That's just like the little one gets bullied.
Yeah,
That's it's not fun, it's not good, but that's how life is.
yeah,
That's with in every family.
yeah,
But
definitely.
we also had these moments where she looked out for me, she looked after me, and she made sure that I was okay. And those are the things that we remember.
Mm,
And
definitely.
but those are not the things that we photograph because
No.
they're not special enough. However, they're actually the most special things ever.
Yes,
Like those
exactly.
tiny little moments that happen every day. And
Mm,
that's what I want to photograph. I don't want to be a milestone photographer. I do photograph milestones because I do still think they're important to celebrate, whatever the milestone is. But that's not what I want to focus my work on because
yeah.
that's not where life happens.
It's about the journey, isn't it? The journey towards the milestone.
Yeah.
So you touched a little bit there about your sister, and this is all about our values. So I talked in my early episode on this, how my values, how I came to find them, where I was put in some really challenging, difficult situations. And that's when the value of honesty, trust, I can't remember them all now, but particularly honesty and trust and fairness came to the fore. You know, I've got many more than three, but those are really critical at different stages throughout my life. And I can see how they've driven me to be, you know, self-employed where I am now and why I do what I do. So can you tell us what your top three values are and kind of why you would choose those?
Kind of really hard to narrow down to three because I don't think it's I've got like a whole cloud of values. They all kind of interact with each other. They all kind of go with each
Yeah.
other. I did write my top five down, just to kind of be prepared for this. And I would say my top three would be authenticity, honesty, and empathy. But I also have kindness and passion,
Yeah.
um, all of these things and freedom. But I think
Yeah.
authenticity, honesty, and empathy are to me the most important. And they really, I can see more and more um how they affect my work, like how I work and who I work with.
Mhm. Definitely. I mean, where you're talking about showing real life, that's authenticity, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah, and it's empathy because I don't judge. So parents
Yeah.
always are worried about my house is a tip. It's so messy. And like, I don't care. I'm not
Mm.
coming to judge you. First of all, I don't have children of my own, so I'm in no place to judge any parent with
My
whoever.
dog's,
Like,
I'm just laughing
I
because my
heard
dog's just started barking.
is
This is
agreeing.
this is real life as it
Yes,
happens. He does this every time I do a podcast. He will suddenly wake up. So we'll carry on.
yeah. So I don't have children of my own, so I'm in no place to. I mean, nobody should ever judge any parent
Mm,
anyway, but I'm in no place to judge a parent how they raise their kids
mm,
because I've not been there.
yeah,
And also that's their children, it's their life. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm literally just there to hang out and document what I see. So they have visual reminders of what their life looks like from the outside, from someone impartial, non-judgmental, who's just there to just document the life so the kids can remember later what their life looked like and for the parents to appreciate what they have created, like this loving home where they bring up kids, whether it's one or five, I don't care, and how they live their life to the best of their abilities and within their own values, whatever is important to them. So I'm
yeah,
completely non-judgmental, and that's I think where the empathy is. So whenever someone tells me a story of where someone was treated unfairly, I always want to hear the other side. And like, I completely
yes,
understand what they're saying, but this story is one-sided. I can only judge by what one person said. And the truth is probably between the two of them.
yeah,
So I want to hear if I need to be part of this, I want to hear the other side because I don't want to judge the other person without hearing what they said. So that's the empathy, is like always bringing everything
yeah,
together and kind of making sure that I don't favor one side over another and make a judgment that I shouldn't be making.
yeah. I completely agree with you on that one, 100%. And how do you feel? Have you worked with any clients where you felt your values have maybe been challenged or you haven't felt aligned with them?
Um, yeah, every now and then. So obviously, I need to make money, and not all my money comes from working with families and small businesses. Sometimes I work with bigger corporations, and that doesn't always align 100% with my values. I'm 100% transparent. I do have to live. I do have to make
Mm.
money, and not all the time I can make a living from the two bits I absolutely love doing. So sometimes I kind of have to supplement with higher paying jobs, and that doesn't always 100% align with me. And I do notice how it's not always like this. Like, it doesn't mean big corporations completely are the complete opposite of what I want to do. It's just, it can be trickier. There's just more hurdles. There's more people who want to have a say, and they don't trust me all the time because they have their own agenda, which makes
Yes.
sense. I'm not judging that. It's just, I can see that. Um, and it can be sometimes hard to make them believe that I can do the job without them interfering. And I can really see sometimes how it can be very superficial, and it can be very like, this is what we do. This is how you need to do this. You need to follow our template. I'm just like, I'm just going to do this for the money. So it does happen, but I can feel in me, like it frustrates me
Yeah.
at times. Not always. Like, I had amazing clients, corporate clients, bigger companies that just are 100% on board with what I do. But every now and then you get a client where I'm like, if it wasn't for the money, I would not do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, we have to be realistic. We're all, whilst we're running businesses that are very heart driven and heart centered, values driven, you do still need to make a living. And sometimes being values driven doesn't necessarily, oh, my puppy's now decided to join me. It doesn't necessarily pay the bills. So you sometimes do need to work with those organizations that you think it's not really ideal, but we'll make the best of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely. Has there been any time in your life where your values, either in your business or in your personal life, have been really challenged? And what did you do? How did you feel? And what did you do about that?
I had to think about that. I find it really hard to remember this. I do know that so before I went full time, I left my corporate jobs. I was a senior video producer in a company that offers foundation programs for international students in the UK, US, and China, now also in Australia. Um, and I absolutely loved my job when I started. But in the end, I had to leave because of the company politics and so basically they have their own values. And every year in our year end conversations, we had to basically tell them how we support their values. And while the values for the most part were overlapping with mine, I'm just like, I was thinking, like, these are your values. Why
Yes,
do I need to tell you how I support your values? This is
very
uh,
true.
it's really interesting how they basically, these are our values. These need to be yours now. It's like, what if they're not? Obviously, what if they're not completely? Then I wouldn't have been a good fit anyway. And like I said, in the core, they were my values. They were part of my big values. But it's just the way they enforced those values. It wasn't actually like the values that they stood for didn't always come across in the work we did. And it gets really frustrating when you feel like you have your values on the other side, but you're actually telling me to do something different, because in the end it's about the money that you make.
Yeah.
And yeah, I find this really frustrating, and it gets to a point where I'm just like, get really agitated and really
Yeah. Yeah.
and very not very fun to be around for a while.
Do you know what? I don't think any of us are very fun to be around when our values
Yeah,
are really being challenged. I know my investment banking career, I couldn't tell you what the values were for that company. And that's not because it was a few years ago, but when they were never written anywhere, or if they were, they didn't mean an awful lot. And for me, I wanted to leave that environment because it felt unfair. There was dishonesty that I was asked to collude with. And I got to that point of, this is all about greed. It's not about caring for others and giving back and doing good. And that's why I ultimately went, this is not for me. But equally, in my civil service career, there are, civil service values, code of conduct, there are senior leadership values. And one department I worked with had the values painted all over the walls. But I could probably sit there and count on the fingers of one hand how many people paid attention to them and lived according to those. And I'm with you. So those values are the company's. Yes, we might have had a hand in deciding what they were, but they're not necessarily mine. And when they come into conflict with mine, that's when I have to walk away. I don't sit there and do it. I have to have things feeling aligned. And that's really, really important. And as you say, sometimes with big organizations, you don't always feel aligned with either their purpose or their values. And that can be a really uncomfortable place to be. And
Absolutely.
it's that, I think with the ones that you've talked about, authenticity is so important. And again, when your values are tested, that's when you become more authentic, because you start to take a stand either against something or you walk away. You just, that authenticity just comes through 100%. And what I'm going to ask you now is a question that I like. I've got my notes here, so
Yeah.
real life here. We're not unscripted. We've got our notes here. It's a question that I ask all of my guests. I started it in the first season, and got some fascinating answers. And it is one of these ones that hopefully will get you thinking. But what I want to ask you is, if you were able to go back in time to a younger Anya and taking on board everything that you've learned getting to this stage, what's the one piece of advice you would give Anya?
I would say I would try and make myself really listen to myself and my own thoughts and figure out what is it that I want. Like, how do I want to live my life? What is important to me and not what's important to the people around me, what they expect from me. And just really listen and follow my gut. Because a lot of times we're too scared to follow our gut.
Yeah.
We just need to kind of fit in and follow the masses and just do what everybody else does. And I've done that so much in my life, doing what others did because I wanted to be liked, I wanted to be accepted, I wanted to be in a circle of people.
Yeah.
And I kind of shoved to the side, this doesn't really sit right with me, but I need to do this if I want to be in that circle.
Yeah.
If I want to be with those people, because obviously we always have this idea, these people, they're so successful or they're so popular, and you need to kind of be in their vicinity to be noticed by others. It's always about being seen, isn't it? It's about being seen for who you are, what you stand for. And the funny thing is, fitting in and adapting to everybody else does not make you visible. It makes you invisible completely, because you blend in. Yeah. So I didn't want to stand out in the sense, I didn't want eyes on me. I don't like being center of attention. But sometimes you kind of just need to be in order to stand up for yourself and just do what feels right to you, even though it goes a different direction than anybody else, and just kind of be brave and do it anyway, because in the end, it's your life and you only got one of it. So I would tell myself to listen to myself and listen to my gut and not get distracted so much by what I think society or the people around me expect from me.
That is fantastic. Listen to their intuition. It's never wrong. It's always right, and follow through on it. But again, some of the things that you say, that sense of acceptance, that we put so much pressure on ourselves to feel accepted by the masses, by the group, by the in crowd, that we then find that we don't have acceptance for ourselves. So you get that real clash. And I think we live in a world today with social media, and I'm not dissing it, I'm on social media like everybody, but there is this thing that we all want our 5 minutes of fame, that every time you turn on the TV, it's a reality TV show. And yes, they're entertaining, but it's driving people through to behaviors where actually they're not being true to themselves. And we know from people like Caroline Flack and others that actually it's not a good place to be. So again, you've brought us full circle with acceptance and authenticity and listening to your gut, really listening to it.
Because ultimately, what we all want is be seen and accepted and be listened to and be taken like just allowing ourselves and having others allow ourselves to be who we are and not having to change for anybody else. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what we all want.
Yeah. We don't all voice it though. So thank you so much for voicing that, and definitely really thought-provoking, and will be interesting to hear other people's views. But I'm with you. Ultimately, we're here to have a happy life. And that means being seen, being heard, being accepted, feeling that you matter. You know, I would hate to get to the end of my life and be looking back and think nothing that I did really mattered. And again, that's part of the legacy that we leave. And you, with your style of photography, are showing people that the everyday matters, and matters more than the big staged events. And I think that is really, really powerful. So thank you so much for sharing your journey and your views and your values with us today, Anya. It's been really fascinating talking to you. And I know we will talk again, because we have come from similar places in terms of our views and our thoughts. And again, that's something for me to reflect on. Am I inviting people to my podcast because we're on a similar wavelength? The old unconscious bias in there, but I'm sure we are. We all want to talk to people that resonate with us, that we feel comfortable with. So thank you so much for allowing me to interview you today and to be part of this podcast. And if there is anybody out there that would like your expertise, that would love to have you come and take some photographs and document their life, how can they reach out to you? How can they find you?
So the easiest way to reach out is probably Instagram, because it's easier to spell. So my Instagram handle is by_Anya P. Because my full name is a bit complicated for non-Germans. So it's anyapoelman.com. It's POEHLMANN.com. And even my partner of 4.5 years still misspells my last name. So that's why I prefer to send people to my Instagram, because then you can find the links and you can find my work, because it's my portfolio. But yeah, if anybody has any questions or would just like to talk about documenting life from any point of view, just message me. Love to have a chat.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So definitely, if you want to document your life, think about photography and taking those photos in a slightly different way and learn more, then do follow Anya on Instagram, as she has said. So this we're on episode 7 of this season's podcast, which has gone really quickly. So I've been a bit of a podcast demon over the last few weeks. So anybody that is listening or watching us on YouTube, it would be great to hear what you have to say. All of my guests give you their links and tell you how you can reach them. So do reach out to them. If you're looking for any kind of perimenopause support, general life coaching, or you're an organisation that is looking to actually support women through menopause in your workplace, then do reach out to me. You can get me at Jeanette@phoenixwellness.co.uk. And my website is all those W's, phoenixwellness.co.uk. And I would love to talk to you. We've got more episodes to come in this podcast, and I think I've got another at least 3 organised. So talking to lots of different people about different aspects of their lives, their careers, but how they actually live according to their values. So it's lovely to have you all on board, and I look forward to seeing you again in our next episode. Thanks for your time, Anya.
Thanks for having me.